Greetings again to our study of the Gospel according to John. Now, for the last 3 weeks, we've been dealing with the love letter that I've called of Jesus' message to his disciples before his death. But in chapters 18 and 19 that we're considering this week, this includes the drama of the arrest, the betrayal, the interrogation by the high priest, the trial of Pilate, Jesus' crucifixion, and Jesus' death. I encourage you to, after this video, to read these chapters 18 and 19 and discover the uniqueness of John's presentation of these last hours of Jesus' life. Now, I'm not going to pick and choose individual verses to examine. That would take weeks in these two chapters. Rather, I'm going to try to help us consider how these two chapters reinforce the Gospel according to John. It's not a recollection of the life and teachings of Jesus. Rather, it's a message with a purpose. Now, the message is clear. Jesus has replaced the law as revealing the nature of God. That's the message. And the purpose of the book is to convince the Hellenists, the Greek mind of the day, that there's a spiritual dimension of human existence beyond which the brain cannot comprehend. So that's the purpose, to reach the Greeks. The message is a rejection of the law of Judaism. Now, let's remember what had happened in 90 AD. The Jewish community was facing near extinction. Their temple was destroyed by the Roman Empire in 70 AD. And really, the Jewish community was near extinction when this book was written. The new threat to the Roman Empire were these upstart Christians who wouldn't wear the mark of the beast on the forehead or the arm, saying that the emperor was divine. And finally, in 90 AD, this book was written out of the community that was started and continued by the friends and followers of John, the beloved disciple, who witnessed these last hours of Jesus' life. So let's take a look at these key components of these two chapters that I've sort of sifted out as setting the message of the Gospel of John as over against and different than the account of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. First of all, according to this Gospel, Jesus was fully a human being as he faced his accusers and experienced the crucifixion. On the cross, 2 of the 7 last words are recorded in the Gospel according to John. One is, "Woman, behold your son, and son, behold your mother," committing the care of his mother over to John, the beloved disciple. This act of empathy showed the human side of Jesus on the cross. But also another of the last words, "I thirst," again representing the fully human nature of Jesus on the cross. So the first unique component is that Jesus was fully human as he faced crucifixion and death. Secondly, he was totally engulfed by divine love, which gave him the strength to be in charge of what happened in the last hours of his life. In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, there's a reference to Judas coming up and kissing Jesus to identify Jesus to the officers and the temple police who came to arrest him, but not according to the Gospel of John. In the Gospel of John, we read in chapter 18, Jesus identified himself when the officers came and the police came. Another one of the I am statements, he said, I am he. Indeed, the trial before Pilate is only recorded in the Gospel according to John. And this trial before Pilate represented that Jesus' death was caused by the authorities of the day, governmental Roman authorities and religious authorities in the Jewish community. But Jesus was in charge all the way to the cross. Third, Jesus was betrayed by Peter. Now, in 90 AD, the book of Luke and Acts was authored by the same author, okay? And the book of Acts was already known in the Christian community when this gospel according to John was written. And the Acts of the Apostles, the first half of that book was committed to Peter and the leadership he provided in the church in Jerusalem as it grew from a few to more than a few, many in Jerusalem. Peter was the leader of the early church in Jerusalem. You see, Peter's betrayal was the representative, if you will, that discipleship does not mean without sin. Rather, discipleship is empowered by the new life of forgiveness. Indeed, Jesus was betrayed by one of his closest disciples. But what makes the difference is what happens after the event of wrongdoing, empowered by forgiveness. In Matthew, another characteristic of these chapters is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the crowd is portrayed as yelling, "Crucify him," at strategic points of the hearing and the trial. Time and time again, this gospel reminds us that it wasn't the crowd that turned against Jesus. It was the governmental and religious leaders that yelled, "Crucify him." Indeed, the message is that those who are encumbered by roles of authority, roles of leadership, the emperor on the one hand and the high priest on the other hand, indeed, they were threatened by agape love. They were threatened by the word becoming flesh among them. And the poor and the commoners of the day did not call for the crucifixion of Jesus according to the gospel, according to John. They were not threatened by agape love, but rather they became his disciples, the poor and the commoners of the day. Finally, agape love. The true revelation of God in flesh is universal, not parochial, limited to a few. The inscription on the cross was written in 3 languages: Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. The 3 languages in the world as it was known at that time: Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. Indeed, the message of John was that agape love was revealed for all, universally, not just for a piece of the world, but according to John 3:16, God so loved the world with no exceptions, no one left out. Not a parochial piece of the world, not just the chosen few, but rather the world. The gift of divine love is a gift for all, no exceptions, including you and me. Again, I urge you to read chapters 18 and 19, a unique and clear portrayal of the last hours of the Word that had become in flesh. Now for your thought and our conversation, I have some questions. First of all, who in 2022 are the persons in authority who are threatened by agape, empathetic, and sacrificial love? Secondly, does the portrayal of Jesus as fully human enhance or lessen your willingness to be his disciple? What is your response to the statement that discipleship is not without sin? Rather, discipleship is empowered by forgiveness. And finally, how does the universality of the gift of agape love, a threat to the church who understands itself to be the chosen people of God? Enjoy your thought, and we'll look forward to our conversation on Sunday. Thank you.